Hi and welcome to the DBS Institute YouTube channel. My name is DC Breaks, and in this video I'm going to be exploring a workflow that I use for designing Neurofunk style drum and bass lines in kilohertz phase plant. So with this type of sound, rather than showing you a specific way of designing a specific Neurofunk sound, I want to show you a workflow, if you like, and some of the considerations that you can think about to design your own. So with Neurofunk, it's all about adding movement and creating funk using the bass part of the track. And there's lots of different ways we can introduce that movement in the sound using phase plant. I'm going to start by adding some wavetable synthesis and diving a little bit into wavetable design. So if we click our pencil tool here and go to File and New in the wavetable editor, we can create our own wavetables. So the way this works is that we have 256 different frames. If we come to frame 1, we can draw in a basic shape like a sine wave, using the sine tool. And then perhaps coming to the end of our table and just drawing in something else completely different. Let's go for some kind of weird square wave, for example. It doesn't really matter what it looks like, and hit done. And then you can see actually as I'm drawing that, the resulting harmonic structure of the waveform, which is, as you see, it's very noisy. It's got a lot of content in the high end. And if we then use the morph tool, we can kind of blend between our sine wave, and you'll see as I move this along, that sine wave gradually morphing into that weird shape I designed at the end there. So let's hit done, and then come back into phase plant, and you can see if I click and drag, you can see how our wavetable now has been built between our sine wave and that weird shape. So now to move between those, we just need to use a modulator. I'm going to use an LFO in a ramp up pattern. I'm just going to link this to the grid. We're working at 174 with it being a drum and bass tune. So we'll have this kind of sweeping up over the course of 1 bar. And so I just need to route the output of our LFO through to our frame within our wavetable. So now we can see it moving through. So let's hear a note. So that's one way of creating a little bit of movement. The other way that we can do this is to use filters. So this is classically the way that these sounds are designed. We can use a filter, for example. One trick is to use a notch filter and kind of sweep through the middle of the sound, removing some of the frequencies. We can duplicate this, and using the same modulator, we'll see why that's important later on, create perhaps a sweep going in the opposite direction. We can use the same modulator again to control the cutoff of maybe a low pass filter. And I'm not putting too much thought into this at this point, I'm just kind of trying to get some basic movement going. Now you'll notice within the filters there's these different modes, and these effectively model different behaviors around the cutoff frequency. So if we go for one of the more exotic ones like biased, for example, and turn up the drive, you can see it's adding in all this kind of additional, you can think of them as EQ if you like, basically just boosting some of the different harmonics around the cutoff frequency. You can experiment with different models to see kind of how these end up looking. Something like that might be quite cool. And again, just in this one too. And you can hear how that's added in lots of extra harmonic content in the sort of mids and high range of our sound. So that's a kind of basic starting point. What I want to do now is just spend a little moment to kind of try and fatten this up a little bit. So the way that the routing works in phase plant is that the signal's coming out of our wavetable into this elevope, and then at the moment it's set to go into lane 1, lane 1's going into lane 2, lane 3 is going into the master. So I tend to do all my processing, post-production if you like, on lane 3. And in multipass there's a whole bunch of really great presets that we can use to quickly fatten up some sounds. Don't need to give this, again, too much thought. We've got this OTT preset that is a bit of a go-to that sounds great. But we can also inject distortion in lots of different places. So we can actually add it in any of the lanes, but we can also add it at a generation level. So if I click here and choose distortion, I can add some distortion so that the signal goes from our wavetable into the distortion before the envelope. And we can experiment with different models of distortion here as well, which can sound quite good. We might want to modulate that perhaps, or not. It's up to, it depends on what you want to do. And my philosophy generally is that rather than using lots of one type of distortion, you get a better and more interesting result if you use small amounts of lots of different types of distortion. So it might be that I want to insert, for example, a factorator at this point. So just to add a little bit of fuzz in there. And we can experiment as well with kind of moving these around to see how it sounds in different places. So we might have our factorator at the start before it goes through the filters. Or both, before and after. Any processing we do in any of the lanes we can also control with the mix amount. So that was it really without any of that movement. And what I've been doing so far is just to use this one LFO to create that movement, and it's a bit boring. It's just kind of quite linear. It's just like up through in a nice even way. So to create a much greater sense of funk and movement, we can actually edit this as well and start trying to come up with something a bit more funky. So let's try something like that. So that sounds quite good. I think it sounds a little bit bright, so I'm going to copy over a filter and have everything running through a filter. And now we have tons of movement. It's all starting to sound quite fat. And this is really the workflow that I use. It's quite simple, but there's lots of flexibility to do different things. And so far, I've only really used some basic wavetable design matched with filters and distortion in different kind of routings to create that particular sound. So I can experiment with different LFO shapes, I can experiment with different filter types and moving these around. I haven't even got into any of the other huge amount of different essential effects that are included within Phase Plant. We could add in some phase distortion. There's lots of different styles of distortion, EQ and so on. But this is a great sort of starting point, if you like, for going off and experimenting with how to design Neurofunk drum and bass sounds. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button to get more great videos like this delivered straight to your inbox. But that's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.